Hey there, my friends. It's Andy coming to you live from Ventura County with the legend of the night. That sounded funny.
Legend in my own mind.
Awesome. And we planned on having this on Saturday. I'm just going to do it next minute because I got a couple messages already from people saying, did you go live on Saturday? Well, we got derailed by a meeting that we had with one of my friends. I mean, not completely. It was fine. It just caused things to kind of roll everything back. And then we began to talk a little bit more about the subject matter. One of your friends did an article on this subject dealing with the concern of using counterterrorism tactics and tools against Americans. So we're going to jump into that just a little bit. But as we talked, there's things that we can talk about and things that we can't. I mean, I'm former law enforcement, and there's things that I know that I can't share that I dealt with. And so we had to figure out this balance between making people aware of what's possible without causing grief in ourselves.
Yes.
And then there was a great article that came out, which was, I think, helpful to you in particular, that gave you some more speaking points. But this is a really important subject. We want to make sure, too, before this video gets taken off, because I'm afraid of what might happen, is that go to patriotcoms.org. If you can do that now during the show without losing us, do that. And just put your email address and your name. There's not a lot of activity happening right now, but we have a few things happening that we may need to share with you where we're going to go. And if we're taken off of social media, we'll have no way of communicating with you. This will be the only way that we can share with you where we will be in the future if something were to happen. I know that sounds really bad. I mean, just like even 6 months ago, you would not think that, they're really not going to censor us on social media. They're really not going to say that conservative Christians are terrorists. Like,
it's just,
who would have thought?
Who would have ever imagined?
No, nobody. And so that brings me to, I want to get back to your past a little bit, because a lot of people may not know who you are and what your experience is. But over the years, you worked for under 5 different presidents. You worked with the FBI, LAPD, and counterterrorism. And when we think of counterterrorism or terrorists, I immediately think of global terrorism, not within the United States. I mean, we don't want them coming to the United States. What we're trying to do is keep them out of the United States and United States interests and the dangers that they pose. And we have many tools, drones and spying apparatus and laws, global laws that we can use to combat terrorists, because those are really bad people, right? Organizations and people. So just tell us a little bit about your experience and what you worked on and to the best of your ability.
Sure.
And what the concerns are globally in regard to terrorists.
Well, I specialize in Islamic terrorism. So it's the recruitment pattern, the retention techniques, and the influence that Islamic terrorist groups had on Americans and American interests overseas. So at the tail end of my career was the rise of ISIS. So we were very much focused on Americans, but they had a nexus to a foreign terrorist organization, which was ISIS. So it was about what we could do to develop de-radicalization programs and intervention tools, both kinetic, meaning with law enforcement, and from the community. What could the community do, and the support communities around them, schools, sometimes it was mosques, whatever it was, parents, trusted adults, to intervene before somebody became a terrorist. Like if they were entertaining terrorist ideas, is there an intervention point where we could stop them before they engaged in violence?
Really quick, I just saw this comment. If you're having trouble getting to patriotcoms with 2ms.org, do the W's, www.patriotcoms.org. For some reason, some browsers block it.
That's what happened to me. So
yeah, so put the W's and then the dot. And so the investigations or the spying upon these organizations is when we're thinking about the United States, we have rights. Like
citizens have rights,
search and seizure rights, and
spying,
and so. But when we are out there doing other stuff, there's the rules are slightly different.
Well, okay, so there's 2 facets of this, because I'm going to use the ISIS as an example because those investigations were against Americans. So the tools that we had available to us were expanded as if they were overseas because they had a nexus to a foreign terrorist organization. So once you had a nexus to a foreign terrorist organization, the laws of international terrorism applied to those individuals. It wasn't domestic terrorism per se. It was an international terrorist that was an American. And as a result, we treated them as such. So being able to get a FISA warrant, which also requires it be part of foreign intelligence, like that's why they used that against the president, because there was a nexus to Russia, because you don't use FISA warrants against a domestic terrorist that has no nexus to a foreign intelligence source. So it was, and what's really surreal for me, because remember at the time that I was performing these jobs, I was a Muslim. And I was part of a community that was against terrorism. So me, like other Muslims in my field, there weren't a lot of us, but there were some. We had an aversion to terrorism. I've always been patriotic and I love this country. And so I did everything. I dedicated my life to fighting terrorism. And so there were other Muslims like me that felt the same way. But what's surreal about it is we had meetings with Google and YouTube and Twitter about them using their algorithm to stop the kids and young adults that were being recruited in America from being able to make contact and relationships with ISIS overseas. And so we were constantly courting them, asking them to intervene. And in the beginning, when I was there until 2016, they were very reticent. They did not want to interfere in what they believed was the free marketplace of ideas. And the crazy thing about this is that now they're just willy-nilly like blocking people. Back then, they were not willing to block terrorists. They were absolutely unwilling. And we were just banging our heads against the wall saying, do you understand how dangerous this is for our country, our people, our interests? Why won't you do anything? And so to me, it's so surreal that at this point, they willy-nilly cut people off, even the sitting president of the United States. So it's a really, I mean, just in general, the idea that this apparatus that me and my colleagues built over, 10, 15 years, it took a long time to build these threat assessment programs and these intervention tools, to think that that is the exact language I hear people like AOC and others using against Americans and conservative Christians is not only frightening, but like horrific. It's just so upsetting to think that they would turn that apparatus against Americans who don't agree with their values.
I just want to go back for just a second. When we're talking about terrorists that we've seen over the years, again, 9/11 is the best starting point for many people. There was terrorism happening before 9/11, right? They were blowing up, military ships and other locations. And they tried the World Trade Center before that to try to blow it up. So this was happening before, but we're also talking about people that were also cutting people's heads off and filming it and sending it to us. I mean, that type of terrorism. And I just want to put the focus on what we're talking about in regard to what terrorism is. They're trying to terrorize an entire country to feeling that they are in danger and filling them up with so much fear that people don't go to the movie theaters. People don't go to Super Bowl because they're afraid. They were afraid they were going to blow up, the stadium and that kind of stuff. That terrorism was a real threat.
Well, what we describe as mass targeted violence. So it's mass targeted violence, assassinations, and kidnappings. So it had to be, it's violence motivated by ideological political beliefs to cause mass targeted violence.
And so when we arrest people like that overseas, we take them to Guantanamo Bay, or we take them to some super secret base somewhere. And we had a way of interrogating them, maybe that was slightly different than what happened when you were arrested here in the United States.
Right.
And yeah.
Except for, was it John Walker Lynn who ended up there because he was arrested in Afghanistan, but he was an American citizen. Yes, it was the tools we had available. And that's what my friend, Ambassador Fernandez, wrote about, is that the things that we tried to do, not only did a lot of them fail because there was so much pushback against special interest groups, that the language was too broad, that we were targeting Muslims specifically. No matter how we changed the language, it was still unpalatable to most Americans. But that in the end, the solution was brute force. I mean, Obama killed thousands and thousands of people by drone strikes. We used cyber warfare. We used disinformation campaigns. I mean, the things that we did to be successful, the thought that we would apply those to Americans is just horrible.
Just real quick. So I want to go back to what you said. Obama, how many did he kill?
I can't remember. It's in the tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands
by drones.
By drones. Drone
And
strikes.
yeah, and people thought that he was, the most lenient with terrorists. No, he just killed them in the sky. They had no trial. They had
Well, that's the point I'm trying to get
nothing.
to. When we're talking about terrorists and terrorism, we're talking about spying. We're talking about drones. We're talking about there's no.
And it's not just a drone surveillance.
Yeah.
It's killing
yes.
people.
But we're talking about, when we're talking about engagement, we're not sending like a couple people down there. Hey, can you put your hands behind your back? We're going to shut arrest. Oh, you're a terrorist. And you're vaporized and you're gone. Exactly. That's the point I'm trying to get to. And when we're talking about the tools and the things that they did to locate terrorists, and then find them and then just wipe them off the face of the earth. And even the ones they captured, they take to Guantanamo Bay, and there was a period of time of waterboarding and a bunch of other stuff. You have liberal organizations like the ACLU screaming.
Absolutely.
About these people that were cutting Americans' heads off,
exactly.
blowing buildings up, blowing ships up, blowing other people up in other countries, going in with a body bomb on improvised explosive device into a bazaar and blowing up hundreds of people that were there for a wedding. Those tools are being used. I mean, they just look at that whole everything, the people that we're after, and the types of things we did to capture them or kill them. And now I want to bring us here. Now in the United States, the same ones that were fighting against the terrorists that were killing people. Now we have the liberals. And this, I'm not saying this to bag on liberals necessarily. I just want to point out the fact that it's the liberals now who are here in the United States
saying apply those laws to us.
To conservative Christians.
They weren't willing to apply it to people overseas.
They would have no problem using a drone to take out certain people. I almost said a couple of names. I don't want to do that. But I have a feeling they said, well, yeah, take them out. Take out a certain senator.
Or like that PBS lawyer who's like, we need to send her to re-education camps.
Yes.
To think that they would say that against their fellow Americans, no matter how unpalatable they think our ideas are, the fact that they think that those programs and techniques should now be applied to their ideological enemies in the United States is just abominable. And I think, and what I told Andy, why it's important to me that we do the show, was that I wanted your viewers and our audience to know that the most important thing is that we argue to our legislators and to our elected officials to not allow this language to be applied to Americans. We currently do not have a federal crime statute for domestic terrorism exactly because of this, because it's always been a very difficult issue to gain consensus on, because people did not want those systems and those programs applied to Americans. It's something that we cherish our freedom, and even if we disagree, so we have a test. It's a Supreme Court test called the incitement to violence. It's a Brandenburg test that you can't yell fire in an open building. It was applied originally to the Klan, that there is a strict limitation even on holding somebody accountable for incitement to violence in a rally, that there must be an imminent threat of harm, an explicit imminent threat of harm. In other words, the person has to stand up and say, go there and kill those people, or we want to harm those people, for that to be a crime. So even what they accuse the president of, who said peacefully go and tell them about it, to say that that's an incitement to violence or that was a call of domestic terrorism is an absolute lie. It's an absolute lie. And it wouldn't pass in any court of law. But in the court of public opinion, these liberal elected officials, whether it's in Congress at the highest level, in the federal level, or it's at the state and local level, they're radicalized, we're domestic terrorists, is just wrong. It's just an outright lie by legal standards.
I just want to address a couple of things here. And one of them is this gentleman here, Black Clover 999. So tired of you fake patriots. And I'm apparently we're goons.
Whatever.
And I just wanted but there's a reason I'm bringing this up. If they are terrorists, they should be treated like it.
Yes.
I think he's talking about Americans.
Well, I mean, that's the point, is that we're not terrorists by definition.
But see, he has a platform now that he's able to share. He's on our show sharing his opinion, which is fantastic.
Exactly.
I mean, I applaud that. I invite people to have their opinion. The problem is, Black Clover 999, is that they being the left or the liberals or the Democrats that are currently screaming that we need to look at conservative Christians or conservative programs like this one as terrorists, that we are not allowed to do stuff like this, that we're not allowed to have a platform where Black Clover can come on and give his opinion, or he can only have his opinion and that's it. Right. And I don't know that he wants to live in that kind of America. And this is the thing I finally want to bring to a point here, is that I know that he wants to be able to speak freely. Exactly. He doesn't understand what we're talking about. Exactly. That this could be taken away, this ability to be taken away, or he could be looked at as a terrorist. If somebody decides that they don't like, that's currently in power, don't like what he's saying, that he could be looked at as a terrorist.
Well, and then that's what I was telling you about before we went on, about the ACLU that fought so vociferously for the Patriot Act and other terrorism laws not to be applied, and especially not to be used against liberal groups, left-wing groups, is, from what I see, silent on the thought of this being applied to us. And I'm just shocked. I even had this discussion with my daughter and her friends that it doesn't bother me that you have ideas and opinions different than me. I want you to respect the difference of opinions. I want you to have your own opinions, but allow me to express to you mine and argue yours intelligently in light of the truth of mine. Take my facts and your facts and decide which ones you prefer. But you can't silence one party and say that it's because you guys don't deserve to speak.
Right.
And what you say is violent. I don't see how anything we say is violent.
Yeah, I mean it's one thing to have Facebook and Twitter, blocking free speech. It's another thing to be calling us terrorists and want us arrested for it.
Exactly.
And I've even seen people like AOC say they take us to Guantanamo Bay ourselves, or have us re-educated. Let's see. Gosh, I saw it up here somewhere. Oh, you're talking about? I just want to clarify for Melanie. Yeah.
We're talking about domestic terrorism. Yes.
And domestic terrorism, that's also that would be like what's the name of the guy who blew up the building in Texas? He got a bunch of fertilizer.
Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah.
McVeigh.
Yeah, McVeigh. Thank you, Timothy McVeigh. So Timothy, that's kind of when I think of domestic terrorism, that's a guy who builds a bomb and blows up a federal building.
Well, like I said, the FBI, we pulled up a definition of domestic terrorism. Is it must be the incitement to a mass targeted violent attack, an assassination, or a kidnapping. So it has to be connected to violence. I gave another example when we were driving the other day that I tell to people all the time. Is even in our preaching of Christianity, I say, well, that's violent. You want to kill all other people. No, we do not want to kill other people. We believe that God is binary, that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And that if you don't believe in him, you won't enter paradise. You won't be with the Father. So what happens to everybody else? They'll go to hell. Okay, well, if you don't like it, then don't believe me. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you have the absolute right not to believe as I believe. But you can't tell me that's an incitement to violence. I'm not trying to kill somebody who doesn't believe in me. I'm just, this is what I believe. And you say, you know what? That sounds nuts. I don't believe you. Great. Let's go get a burger.
Let's go hug it out.
Yeah. I love you. Totally up to you not to believe it.
Yeah. We have friends that have cheated on their wives. We have people that you have a friend who's a former inmate.
Yes.
Like convicted
kill people with his bare hands.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and your friends.
Yes,
and that doesn't make you a terrorist because you know somebody like that. He's asked God's forgiveness. He's gone through a world of change in his life.
Absolutely,
and is a born again Christian.
Exactly.
Again, that doesn't. It's just I just love what you said. Now I'm stuck in my head that we cannot even just tell people this is what the Bible says. That doesn't mean make me a horrible person.
No.
Because I struggle. I struggle too. I'm a sinner too. My gosh.
And God said it. I didn't say it. I'm just repeating what God said. But if you don't believe in my God, I still love you. Yes. You know what I mean? It's like we're trying to express to people, I want you to have what I have. I want you to find the love of Christ. But if you don't want it, that's fine.
Right.
That's totally up to you. Right. It involves our free will. Jesus doesn't want anybody by force, So, I mean, that's the whole point of being human beings. So, and it's the same thing with our political views. My parents have very different political views than me. And it seems like, which Andy finds so amusing, because my father did not start off this way. My father was a federal was a Republican
Capitalist.
bundler. He was a fundraiser for the Republican Party since I was a little girl. That's actually how I got involved in conservative politics. But as he got older, he believed, I don't know what, he suddenly became like a bleeding heart liberal. But nonetheless, we have these like funny conversations about it. But the important thing is that it doesn't digress into name calling and vilification, where you basically demonize the other person because they don't believe the same things as you do. And we shouldn't do that about religion. We shouldn't do that about politics. There's no issue that we shouldn't be able to agree to disagree.
Right. So here's an interesting, Amy brings up a point here, and I've seen this over and over again. CNN showed a heavily edited version of Trump's statements at the protests, and we've seen that over the 5 years that he's been president. That again, I've always asked people, well, show me where he said that.
Right.
I always ask people to show me, and they never can.
Right.
Either in writing or in the actual video. Never have they showed me where he's said that all Mexicans are evil. He never said that. He never had babies in cages. He didn't. That was Obama.
Obama
that did
built
that,
those
right?
cages.
But they put the picture
and tear gassed them more times than Trump ever did. Trump did that one time. I think there was reported like where Obama did that 5 times with the tear gas in the water.
So bringing to my point, the creation of conservative Christians or conservatives being terrorists is done by the media.
Yes.
They're creating, along with a few politicians.
Because they're repeating the talking points.
Right.
They're all reading from the same script. These people have been radicalized. They're domestic terrorists because and that's why it's important to talk about this with other people, is that language is dangerous. And I see it every time I hear them speak about it. They're using the language that we use to build the foreign terrorist organization structure. It is the lingo we use in that setting against foreign terrorists.
Yep. Like AOC saying, Senator Cruz is trying to have me murdered. I mean, those are just simply crazy words.
Right.
Because
they're trying to create the nexus to violence.
Right.
Because words alone, they know, are not prosecutorial. They're not penalties. They're not criminal penalties. So they're trying to attach violence.
Right.
Even though there's nothing violent about what we're trying to say. Even if you're saying someone's going to hell, that's not violent.
Yep.
That's not us. We're not doing it.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything to them,
Yeah. Pelosi says the enemy is in the House. Like the enemy is in the Congress. Like the enemy. It's just
inflammatory.
It's so inflammatory. So maddening. I want to bring up this article just really quick so I can show people what it looks like. And that is, oops, let me get rid of the thing there and the frame. So sorry. I jumped the gun. Didn't get everything taken off. There we go. This is an article that your friend wrote, right? Beware playing the Counter-Terrorism game at home. I'm going to copy the URL and paste it into the comments. And so you can all read it. Is there any speaking points in particular on the article that you may want to?
Well, a lot of them I mentioned, which is we've got to be careful. Oh, Alberto knows better than anyone the game we played with language, that every single word we chose was controversial. Like they didn't like any of the words. That's how we ended up with countering violent extremism. Everyone's like, that's just code for Muslims. And we're like, well, listen, no matter what.
The liberals didn't like the language.
Hated it. Hated it. No matter, I mean, it did. And we would make jokes saying, call it fight the red balloons. We don't care what you want to call it. But there was just this constant hand wringing over terminology. And Alberto's point in the article is that it seems like people don't even care about that anymore. They're just so quick to apply terrorism, radicalization, you're inciting violence to their fellow Americans, when we weren't willing to do that for foreign terrorists that you described were beheading people and blowing up movie theaters. We weren't willing to apply that terminology to those people, but we're willing to apply it to our neighbors that are conservative Christians. So the dangers of that, and that the success in our counterterrorism program was brute force, was drone attacks against people that we had no information about. They never received a trial. They didn't receive due process. Not that most of them were not Americans, but still, they didn't get a chance to defend themselves. We just killed them from the air. And cyber warfare and censorship.
Censorship. Huge.
Exactly.
That is happening, as we know, as all of us know that are watching this. And that is again, I go back to what is his name? I want to get it right because I don't want to hurt anybody. Black Clover is the thing. Like, to have him on the show is amazing that we have this opportunity to have somebody on there that can do that. We don't want that to stop. that ability to do that. I could always block them, right? That's my prerogative as the guy who runs the show, or my social media, that I could block them. But again, I encourage it. We are entering a very dangerous time where we are not getting to choose what it is that we want to listen to, what we want to teach our children. I mean, when we really, as we mentioned in a couple of shows, we really all need to be involved in our local politics to begin with. I know we're talking a little bit about global and that kind of stuff, but as we begin to see these things happening, the reason these things are happening is because we stopped caring about what's happening around us.
Because it trickles down all the way to the local level. Like, I think this is important for liberals to understand. So it's the same thing I tell my daughter, that do not think it's okay when your folks are in power and this is applied to us and you're like, good riddance, because when the tables turn, that same indiscretion will then be applied to you. You have to cherish the right to free speech. And it happens even with our children, where if they want to teach about, or if we can't stop them from teaching about socialist movements, well, then you have to teach about the Patriot movement. You have to teach civics as it currently exists, the rights to free speech, so that our children get to choose. They're not force-fed information about what they're supposed to believe. I mean, I can't imagine that Americans today want to be force-fed one way of thought, one way of thinking. This is horrible.
Well, and our media needs to get back to actually, speaking the news.
Novel concept.
What's actually happening. I put a post up on my personal page just a few minutes ago, maybe about 30 minutes ago. And that is about Lori Lightfoot, the governor, or is it the mayor? I always forget. She's either the mayor of Chicago or the governor of Illinois. No, she's the mayor of Chicago, the mayor of Chicago. So she's now arguing with the school union. The teachers don't want to go back to work. And she's saying, if you don't go back to work, there's going to be consequences. Right? There was the other way around not too long ago, where if you go to work, there's consequences. It's the craziest thing. And what I want to bring up about this is that the liberal media doesn't bring any of this stuff up, because when you force small businesses and schools and churches to close, really the people you're hurting the most are the lower income Black communities, right? And you brought up BLM. That's the reason I'm bringing this up, right? And so when you're closing them down, when everybody else, like Amazons and Walmarts and all the big companies, are still able to run, those people are the wealthy. When they're closing public schools, the wealthy can still send their kids to private schools. They can still have private tutoring. They can afford to have,
they can stay home.
They can
where lower income people can't stay home.
Yes, and so you are doing nothing but harming. Now, supposedly, even though supposedly COVID's worse than it's ever been, now they're demanding opening the schools, and now the teachers are not opening up. Again, this is only harming the lower income.
Exactly.
Right. And when you're talking about Black Lives Matter, if you were to really look at that and say, well, if Black Lives Matter, why are they not railing against this Mayor Lightfoot, and saying, get your act together? You have done nothing to help the Black. The murder rate is higher. Illiteracy and lack of having a father are the two leading issues that cause most men to become criminals and wind up in prison. If you were to go into prison and poll everybody, it's illiteracy and not having a father. Are the thing is one thing consistent with most of the prisoners. And this is why, and now they're going, oh, I can't believe there's so much murder and so much violence in these cities. Why is that? We can't figure it out. It's just really if the media would actually do its job, it would put a spotlight on what the true problem is. The true problem is these Democrat-run cities, and I know I'm putting on the Democrats, but they are the ones that seem to be least willing to help lower income Black communities. They are doing the most damage out of all of them.
Absolutely.
She's such a joke. Which one? Lightfoot? Oh my gosh. I mean, we can use her as an example, but our mayor in Los Angeles, our governor in California, you got the mayor in New York, you got the governor in New York. We can go on to Minneapolis, Minnesota. We can go to Oregon and Washington, and you just look at those communities and see what's going on.
Well, and they incentivize single women not to marry so that they can continue to get welfare checks. And so they're not able to create homes with fathers in them, because they incentivize them staying single and getting the money for the children. So they're decentivizing creating families. That's part of the social welfare system. And then they keep people dependent on these checks. They don't get jobs. They don't become independent. and it just creates what Candace Owen calls the plantation. It's the neo-plantation, where they're forced to live in this social welfare plantation that they don't get a chance to grow out of and prosper.
And so bringing this back to our discussion about counterterrorism and how these tools can be used is when you censor the media, when you censor social media, where this kind of discussion, this kind of ideas, and
the
this kind
marketplace of ideas,
these facts are not shown, then there's people that think, well, then they're right. Conservatives are horrible people, and everything that's wrong in this world is because of conservatives, because that's what they're being told. You're only hearing one side of the story, that it's our fault being conservative Christians or conservatives, capitalists, that all these things are happening, because that's what they're hearing. That's all they're being told.
Exactly.
They're not being told the real story. The real story is when you're closing schools and refusing to open them, the only people at harm are the lower income.
Right.
Illiteracy, again, if I could just point at that one thing, illiteracy is one of the leading reasons why men choose to go to crime. I would say women too, but we have far more men being arrested that are far more violent and kill far more people than women. So that's why I'm focusing on men. And then the lack of having a father, which could also be the same thing. Illiteracy, we're not teaching men how to be fathers. We're not teaching men how to be men. And by going to school and learning, and being, able to have a good paying job and all this kind of stuff makes it difficult for men to be men.
Of crime. Yes. Melanie's referring to the videos of Thomas Sowell. Yes. He's one I've learned a lot about this from. So he speaks very eloquently about it. It's a great resource.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, Melody had another really nice comment on our devotional today. Did you read that?
Yes, Melanie's a good friend of mine.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh, Melanie. Did I say Melody?
Melanie.
I have a friend named Melody. So Melody.
So it's not your friend, it's my friend.
It's your friend. But Melanie that was a really great comment.
Yes.
It was really good. I felt that was a lot of typing. Social media companies need to lose 230 protection. Yeah, yes. Absolutely. That is for sure. Yep.
And we just need to encourage our neighbors, our colleagues, our friends, that even if they have differing opinions, is that they shouldn't give up on the ideals of a free society, that we don't want to end up a communist society where ideas and the marketplace of ideas ceases to exist. I mean, it ruins the entire American experience. We are the only nation on earth that is built up of people from every nation. We are not a race. We're not a homogeneous society, and we're founded on ideals. And if those ideals cease to exist, America as we know it ceases to exist. And we all have to be willing to fight for those ideals, because I actually don't think it's healthy that our community goes into an echo chamber, because I find some of my friends that are very conservative are almost going to the I don't want to use a derogatory term, how do you say it? Like, it's almost like the kooky side, where they're reading so much of the far extreme conspiratorial stuff that their ideas seem somewhat kooky, because I think once we go into an echo chamber and we're not listening to other ideals because we feel like we're being persecuted or shut out of those other communities, then that natural debate and fine tuning of our intellectual standpoints doesn't occur. We don't get to debate. I mean, debate makes people stronger.
Yep.
Having to defend what you believe makes you stronger, makes your beliefs stronger. And if we stop doing that with one another, then we end up a very polarized society that I think our intellectual richness diminishes when that happens to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think everybody should be concerned about what's happening.
Yeah. There's no secret. I love debate.
Yes.
If you've been on my personal page, and I really do enjoy it. I mean, I love some of the discussions, and I've changed some of my tact where I end almost not with a particular person in particular. I always say, I love you. I just want to let him know that I love him. I don't hate you, because he said, "What you're hate?" I go, "I've never said that I've hated you ever." This person who often argues with me, Mark, that's his name. I can't think of his name for a second.
Well, it's important because that's why I am somewhat critical of the name calling issue, because because it's not because that's what always happens, is that we get tired or frustrated from defending our point of view, and then we resort to name calling.
Yeah. But that changes it.
We're going to agree to disagree on this one.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I know.
Yes, which is all right. That's
okay.
a free society.
Yes.
Yes.
That's why I love you.
Yes. That's why I love you too.
I tell you how much I love you today?
No.
I love you so much.
I love
My
you
arms
too.
will go out of the screen. See, look, already. That's how much I love you.
This much.
That's much. Right. They don't want ideas. They don't want debate. That's the control. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. You said a mouthful. I mean, that is really the end all be all of what the problem is. Echo chambers are.
But that's the issue, is that we're being persecuted, and that's why we're going into an echo chamber. And I'm with you. I'm in an echo chamber too. But the problem is, as a society, if we stay in our own echo chambers, then our society devolves. It really does, because we're built on the marketplace of ideas, and we're built on intellectual, rigorous debate. It makes us stronger by doing that. And I think when we resort to the name calling and the xenophobia and the homophobic, and we separate ourselves, then we are losing what we call the American fabric. People from different nations and different, backgrounds and different economic classes. Then before you know it, we're separating ourselves based on economic. Okay, we're the rich patriots and they're the poor patriots, or these are the patriots that live down this way, and those are the weird ones, and you know what I mean? And then we start to subdivide ourselves, and it's just, I don't know. I'm a big proponent of free speech and debate, and so I hope we see that. See that return.
Okay, so you have this guy who's in the White House.
Yes, Creepy Joe.
He's just so against capital punishment for murderers.
But
rapist murderers. How many
us in a camp?
Well, how many executions do we actually have a year in this country? I don't know, 2, 10, I don't know.
Right.
But the numbers are very small. But he's for abortion of thousands of children throughout the United States, 326 or something like that a day in California alone. That's when I have to use the word moron. Because I don't know what else do you say? Like you're against executing somebody who's shown that they cannot live within our society. They've proven that they are horrible, nasty people. Okay, let's say that we don't have that. Let's say that we don't have executions. Well, then we shouldn't have abortions.
Exactly.
What are the babies done? What did they talk about the other day at church? Is that the least, it was where we were watching where the mothers being killed in the womb, that the least safest place is in this. That should be the safest place. But as one guy who has these two thoughts, that's where I lose my ability to not use strong language like a moron, because that just seems so stupid to me.
I get it.
That's not me just disagreeing with a person. That's me having like another argument with somebody. And I'm not trying to defend. I am trying to defend myself
constantly. You're not going to get me to change my mind.
But what do we say?
Well,
what do we do about that?
Honestly, to me,
I'm not trying to be childish. I know I'm really not. At some point I lose my cool.
Well, to me, it's actually not out of stupidity. It's intentional. So to me, it's intentional because it's either demonic.
Is that not worse than calling them moronic?
No, because moronic, I don't know. I just think calling him a moron just diminishes from the importance of the argument, which is the what you stated in the first place, which is you have a sense of the right to life for a murderer, but you have no value for the right to life in the womb. And I think that's I understand for sensational social media purposes to put a flashy headline, but I'm saying if you really want to convince somebody of an argument, you're like in your discussions with Mark, resorting to name calling to Mark as an individual just makes him shut down. But if you stick to the intellectual arguments and the points that you're trying to make, then you have the ability to convince him. He's still listening. I think people will still listen. They may not agree with you at any point in the discussion, but when you constantly hammer somebody with the alternative viewpoint, eventually some of it sinks in.
Mm.
At least you're leaving them with both points of view. And I think our job as conservative Christians is to convince people where life begins, that the womb, the fetus, is a human being. Because they like to depersonalize. Remember the terminology, the acronyms they had come up with, conception, a product of conception.
Oh yeah.
They want to avoid calling it a baby because they want to call it a product of conception so they can chop it up into little pieces and sell it. You know, and I think it also takes away from our ability to communicate to people this is demonic, that this is what they did during the times of Molech, that this is the deviance of a society that doesn't abide by God's principles, that thou shalt not kill. And we need to constantly flood the marketplace of ideas with the right ideas.
All right. I'm going to try harder. Do you know why?
Because you love me?
Because I love you. And I respect you. I respect your opinion. And I respect all of your opinion.
Yes.
He is not a moron. He knows what he's
doing.
A moron has the ability to learn.
Exactly. That's a large part of my point. John, they know it, and intentional because it's demonic, or intentional because they believe different than we do. So if we're constantly hammering to the spectators and the bystanders, listen, he's doing this intentionally because he doesn't believe in the right to life of a baby in the womb, and constantly bring that point to their attention, then maybe the bystanders that are watching will come over to our side instead of being offended by the name calling.
Right. But I also think my anger is on the people that voted for him. That I tried to tell you, me to them. I've tried to tell you over the last several months that this guy is not a nice guy. That was one of the things in my post, is that I told this guy, they say he's a nice guy. He's going to bring such peace and unity. Wait a minute. This is what he's doing. He's decided that, you can't execute a murderer because they have the right to life, but babies don't have the right to life. And then you voted for him. You said he was a nice guy. You said he was going to bring unity. You said that he had morals. You said that he was a Catholic. And I've tried to tell you that.
But you could go that whole way without ending in your own words.
I couldn't stop myself.
The whole argument is extremely important to get across. This guy claims he was going to bring unity, but look at these 5 things he's done. He believes of a murderer of 500,000 babies to live. Constantly pointing out those points to the spectators, to the people on the fence, because offense gets people to shut down. When you personally attack someone, it gets them often to shut down. They won't hear anything after that.
You're the best. You're the best. But I love what Bev said here. He's a piece of shit.
But that is true. But that is absolutely true. But
Priscilla?
But
my friends. These are my friends.
Right? No, but I'm not denying that it's true.
I know.
But it's just not the best tactic to winning a debate.
I know.
Otherwise, they would teach our debate teams to insult the opponent. In school, that would be a debate tactic. So when you see your guy getting weak in arguments, start calling him ugly and 4 eyes and stuff, and just disarm him a little. You know what I mean? But it's not a debate.
You know what's so funny? I got to go back to my 21 years in law enforcement. One of the things that I was pretty proud of is that I didn't get into a lot of fights. I could get some of the biggest guys, meanest, nasty criminals, dumbest criminals, smartest. It doesn't matter. I had the ability to talk them into the handcuffs. That was my strength.
You know how to de-escalate.
And I was never calling them a moron.
Right? Exactly.
So, hey, listen. I would tell them, I'd say, now we could do this a couple ways.
Yeah.
We could get in this knockdown, drag out fight. You can punch me in the face. We could all bleed. I go, in the end, you will end up being arrested and you may end up getting shot.
Yeah.
So we can go through all of that hassle,
right.
Or you can just put your hands behind your back and I'm going to do my best to treat you with respect and find how I can help you in the best way possible.
Dog training example?
Yes. You're going to use a dog training example?
I am.
Yes.
How many times have you told people the story of how it broke your heart that how much they hurt your dog? That the overwhelming approach to dog training, canine professional dog training, was to harm the dog into obedience.
Right.
But you were like, no, love and respect is the way to get obedience out of a dog. And so why wouldn't the same tactics work with human beings, as you always say? It's the same with even sharing the gospel.
How dare you use my own argument against me?
I used to hate when you would talk dog training techniques against people, especially when they were applied to me. But I'm realizing how useful they are.
I tell you.
Because they're very applicable to human beings.
They are. See? When we first met, that was the first thing. Well, you can't use dog training for everything. I go, yes, you can. Stick with me long enough and I will show you the way. And now here you are.
See that?
That is so spectacular. Example. Oh my gosh, look at Bev. She's my friend. Vaseo cult is a joke. Oh, okay. Tori.
What is that about?
About my shirt.
Oh, okay.
Apparently had a bad experience with Vaseo.
I'm curious about that, but okay.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's hard to make for another show.
It's hard to make money in multi-level marketing. It's tough. It's not easy.
Oh, for sure.
And some people successful and some fail. And the people that fail, sometimes they're not happy about what happened.
I get it.
And maybe sometimes you got maybe in the wrong team too. I'm just a really quick explanation.
Okay.
I don't know what Tori's experience is. Let's check out something. Okay, so back to our topic. I want to finish up now. I want to circle back around because everything we talked about was applicable about social media and about how we attack each other. And I love what you were talking about. The name calling and stuff like that. I do appreciate that because that is. I think that this is just built up so much that I resort. I've tried to show you with facts and science and ask you to show me where you see these things, and nothing got better. And so now finally, I think I just got frustrated and say, you guys are more. I've been trying to tell you, you guys are more.
And it's funny because you apply the exact opposite rationale in every other aspect of your life, whether it's dog training, police work, and children. He's constantly telling me, you got to keep your cool. You lose your temper, you lose. You know what I mean? How many times do you tell me that? Don't use bad words.
Yeah.
And I lose my temper so much quicker than he's like super dad. I can't even tell you. Like he commands respect with like 3 words. And they're usually just like, do this. And it's just like, everybody's like, I'm like, oh my God, you like 12 kids on your finger. And me, I'm like, so I don't apply. I'm hypocritical when it comes to child rearing.
All right.
Do this, you apply this calm de-escalation approach to every other aspect of your life.
Just not my posts.
Just not your posts. And just not when talking.
But it does cause a lot of discussion, right?
Right.
I'm trying to get the discussion. Sometimes I feel like if I just posted something about it, then nobody would comment. And I've tried that a few times, and I get maybe 2 comments or a couple thumbs up.
Sensationalism sells.
Yeah. So I want to circle back to that.
Oh, you want to circle back?
Yeah, I want to circle back.
I'm a circle back girl.
What do you have any action items?
Yes.
For how we deal with this issue with domestic terrorism?
Yes.
Or us being called terrorists.
People need to hold their elected officials accountable. City, state,
we hear that all the time.
Federal. No, call them out. Call them out
how
when
do
they
we
use
do
that language. Write to your local congressperson. If you live in any of the districts of AOC or Pelosi or any of these other people that are bringing this issue up, we can maybe make a list for people and post it on Facebook. But write to them saying, I don't appreciate you referring to our community as terrorists, and use the language from the FBI that is, mass targeted violence, assassination, and kidnappings. We do not incite to violence. We do not engage or support violence, and basically hold them accountable for this language. Other than that, educate yourself about what terrorism laws are. Talk to your friends and neighbors about it, that this is horrible. Promoting the marketplace, the free marketplace of ideas, the values of free speech. It starts in my home. For those of you who have small children or grandchildren, that it starts in our home, that make sure you're having these conversations with young people, because these are the people that are going to go on to run companies and become elected officials and go to university. And if we don't teach them the respect for free society, not sharing our opinion. I know you're big on getting our kids to believe the same things, which would be awesome. But even if they don't agree on the same things, like my daughter doesn't, is please still maintain the respect for free speech. and that you don't decide somebody is or is not your friend because they're a Trumper, you know, and you don't say, I'm not going to be friends with you because you're a Trumper. I'm like, your mother's a Trumper. You know what I mean? So I'm constantly trying to personalize the importance of having respect for people of different beliefs.
Cool. I sometimes I'll ask, like, my oldest daughter, you know, because she has friends that are liberal. I said, ask them if they want their speech to be shut down, that they can no longer post on TikTok. And I said, there's a video of this guy, Dan Bongino often brings this up too in his show. And I don't love what happened to this kid, but there's this kid in, I want to say it's Minneapolis. I don't know for sure, but he's inside of his store. And he's trying to board it up because they're looting and they're breaking windows. It's during one of the riots. And he's yelling through the window, I'm with you. I'm with you. I believe in what you believe in. And they start breaking down his window. He goes, why are you guys doing this? I believe what you believe. And they came up a lot during the riots. Yeah. And I said, this is, if you don't think they're going to turn on you at some point, you're sadly mistaken. After Biden got elected, they were rioting in whatever town that was. I think it was also Washington or Oregon, that they were attacking the office of the DNC, the Antifa and BLM. They were, you know, calling them fascist again. Like, so, then the Democrats thought they were on their side. Exactly. It's just we really got to get a handle on this. That those of you that are liberals that may be watching, what we're talking about, it applies to you too. The protection that we're talking about against this stuff is important for both sides of the aisle, as they say. Exactly. All right, let's look at a couple more comments and then we'll sign off. We've we're almost approaching an hour. Look at that.
We're going to have a discussion with Tori separately about the whole Vaseo thing.
Okay.
I'm very curious. Tori, I will reach out to you personally.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. And I've heard it all. I've heard it all from not only Vaseo people, the former Vaseo people. Really? I've heard it all. Yeah, Tori could be right. Call every Congress rep and have them impose Robert's Rule of Order. Do you know that?
I'm not familiar with Robert's Rule.
We need a link or some education on that, Don. Why is loving America considered? Who knows? It's a mystery.
School board.
Yes. I've become very active in our local school board here, and I'm just so I can feel the power of it and why it's so important. Never really even thought about it before. So important. I have 5 kids that have gone through the local school system there, and I was vice president of the PTA, but even then I wasn't as interested and understood how important being involved in the school board is.
Absolutely.
And what's going on.
Encourage everybody to do that.
Super important.
Give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Yeah, give them an enhance. Oh, there you go.
That's right. This is you're not doing the Rick Gutman thing. Oh, wow. Interesting. Well,
this is a Vaseo shirt. This isn't a Rick Gutman shirt. It's so funny.
It's believe a lie. It's enemy twisting the truth to get you to take the bait. It's not. We are not terrorists. We love America. They don't. Period. Exactly. And I mean, my biggest advice is to catch your friends and neighbors and colleagues on the fence. That when the issue comes up, don't run from it, and remind them about the importance of free speech, and remind them that we do not advocate violence. We are not trying to violently overthrow the United States or to plant a bomb or any of these things, that language is dangerous to be applied towards people who don't share your values. I mean, that's just the absolute destruction of a free society when we think that other people who don't share our values are the enemy. We're not enemies. We're fellow Americans.
Yeah. I was going to bring up one more thing. So sorry. Because there was a comment. It just reminded me what you were just talking about. Just reminded me that there was a comment on YouTube that I just saw from one of my past broadcasts. I think it was one of ours, or maybe it was one of my solos. That because I often say that America is the least racist country on the planet.
Of course,
has a history of I know.
I mean, what other country in the world is as heterogeneous as we are?
I don't know. If I knew what that means, I would have a response. But you. But his comment was, you not being black telling me that America is the most least racist country. How dare you? It was like this whole thing.
As a Mexican and a Persian? So
yeah.
I don't know. Apparently I'm not brown enough, and neither are you. So
yeah. And being in law enforcement and really seeing what happens on a day-to-day basis on our shift, dealing in some areas of the black community that I've dealt with, that I didn't see any racism. I am sorry. I know you want me to say that I saw racism. I didn't see any racism. Now, do we talk in racist terms and have racist jokes in the locker room, that kind of stuff? I'm not going to lie to you and say that we didn't. We absolutely did. But that didn't translate to us going out there and looking for a black guy and make up a crime and arrest him.
And
beat
again,
him. None of that
it's
ever
systematic racism. Are there racist people in America? Of course there are. But is there systematic racism? Are there systems that we put in place for the purpose of instilling racism? And I don't believe there are either. I believe there were, and that's what the whole civil rights movement was about. But at this point, do we have systematic racism? I do not believe we do. But people, say differently. Again, that's what the free marketplace of ideas is all about. Yeah.
And I've been to so many countries. I'm not sure if this guy who had this comment has ever been to another country, but I've been to a couple of other countries, and I'm telling you, racism is alive and well.
Just go to England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can believe what you want.
Yeah.
But I've been to Budapest, Hungary. Racism is a huge issue, but that's just their daily life. They don't even look at it as at least when I was last there, which was probably 10 years ago. Maybe less, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Germany.
Netherlands. I went to the Netherlands. A cab driver wouldn't drop me down on a street that the Pakistanis lived on. And he dropped me off at the end of the block. I was like, what's going on? He's like, oh, we don't go down there.
Right.
And I was like, why don't you go down there? He's like, well, that's where the Pakistanis live. And I was like, okay. I was shocked, but they just didn't want anything to do with the Muslims.
Yep. Ireland, in Northern Ireland, I would go there to buy dogs. And I remember there were certain stores that you couldn't go into. I wanted to go to the store, and the guy that I was with says, I don't go in those stores.
Yeah. Because
I go, what? And it's because it was Protestant, not Catholic.
See that?
And so I'm telling you, I've been all over the country. Again, whoever this guy was, I don't know if you ever watched it again or not. I could care less. But you cannot tell me, based on my experience of global travel, that on that alone, I've seen far more racism. From the time I'm out of a plane, you can see racism. You hear them talking. They don't like Armenians. They don't like, I'm not going to name them all, but they just don't like the other people. Absolutely. And it's not necessarily other colors necessarily, just other types of people, and of course other races and that kind of stuff. And then here in the United States, we have done more to help other countries of other races at the time of need than any other country on the planet. Every country looks to us. When America fails, the rest of the world fails. And I know that sounds like an elitist thing to say. It sounds like America first thing to say, but I don't think many countries would disagree. They may not want to say it out loud, but deep down inside, they're saying, man, if USA fails, we're in deep trouble. Who's going to pay for our army? Who's going to pay? Who's going to deliver our food? Who's going to grow our food?
Helping hurricanes and tornadoes and earthquakes and natural disasters.
So I'm sorry. I know I said I was going to end, but there was so much stuff there. That was my uncle. Actually, one of the things I said. It's just they keep throwing out that term systemic racism, and it's the catchphrase. Yeah, it is. It's just one of those other things. All right, so sorry. I just wanted to make sure you get that. I meant to talk about that on a couple of these shows, thinking that he may accidentally watch one, but just letting you know that we have to be aware of this. This is a dangerous time. If they continue down this path, it's going to be a serious problem.
Absolutely.
So again, the show's not meant to scare you. It's meant to prepare you, and hopefully you'll take some action. One last one. Take it from a flight attendant. Love America. Yep.
For sure.
Oh, you're right about the Netherlands.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they
don't like people of colors. Like it was, and they're just, the fact that they all live in one place, just the fact that there are areas of the country where a certain ethnic community is concentrated or forced to concentrate is sad. Yeah. Go to Africa. If you don't think that's racism, it's just anyway. All right. That's enough. All right. We love you guys. God bless. Be prepared. Contact your local representatives. Be involved in the school board. Really, really important. I'm learning more about that all the time. That's where we need to start and then grow out from there. And talk to friends and family. Preserve the values of this country. Absolutely. All right, my friends. We love you. And we might as well say it on this one. God bless. God bless you. All right. Have a great night. Take care. Bye.